Hey everybody, welcome to Now It's Dark. I'm Jim. I just watched a movie called Silence of the Prey. This is a horror movie that you can find on Prime or Apple TV for only $3.99 if you so choose. It's a 2024 film, 1 hour and 37 minutes. It is a interesting story. I did not like the movie, so let's start off with that. This movie has a lot of merit to it. It's not necessarily a very like earth-shattering kind of something that's not familiar when you're watching it. It doesn't necessarily like copy, but it definitely has familiar elements to the story, which is in a desperate bid to secure a future for her child, an undocumented immigrant mother takes a caretaker job. Unbeknownst to her, the elderly man conceals a horrifying truth. This was written by Karina Kadzina, Saro Varjahabadian, and directed by Karina and Michael Vianberg. And man, I am sure I butchered that. So there's a lot of different nationalities represented in this movie. Therefore, the names are a little difficult. So we have Nina. She's the undocumented immigrant from Belarus. And her daughter is with her. Um, and she calls her Bella. I think her actual name is Isabella. And she is being transported by Mary, played by Lorena Izrailova, and she is like this contact person in the U.S. that helps kind of hide, kind of smuggle these undocumented immigrants to a place to stay until they can figure out like what's going to be the next step. And Nina, I don't think I said who she would play by. Karina Kadzina. And then she has a daughter, Bella, like I said before. And so Mary drops off Nina and her daughter at Luther's farm, homestead, whatever. He's played by Chris LaPonta. He looked very familiar, so I'm sure I've seen something with him in it. I enjoyed his performance. He's playing the perfect blend of kind of like creepy, suspicious, and old grumpy man, but then he still turns on the charm a little bit. And at first, he is a little apprehensive uh, to take Nina uh, into his life, into the house to be the caretaker of the house. She's just going to do like chores and things. Um, but Mary, kind of pleads with him a little bit. The reason why Luther didn't necessarily want to bring Nina in was because of that he doesn't ever bring any of these immigrants in that have children. It's a little more than he wants to handle. And Mary makes an interesting statement, and she says, "Well, I was hoping that you would reconsider because I haven't been able to bring you anyone in a while." So there you go. Now you get suspicious of this whole setup. And I took a lot of decent notes, but I'm afraid to give away any of the kind of like nuances of the movie that make it a little different because, like I said, this is not like an original crazy script, theme for a movie. But there are some unique parts to the movie that make it good. I think it was paced very well, shot very well, cinematography was fine. The acting, for the most part, was really good. Um, we do have some interesting exchanges between Luther and Nina, and where Luther's basically drawn the line, like, don't go in the basement, don't go in the woodshed, nothing that would raise any red flags. um, Nina is still in that culture shock of that she's just thankful to have a place for her daughter. So I think the character Nina is kind of willfully being blind-eyed to red flags and whatnot. And another character kind of comes into the story who just happens to have their car break down, and he is not so blind to the red flags and tries to kind of get Nina to leave at one point, and she's very clearly um, feeling safe, so she doesn't leave with him, and so that doesn't happen. And so we have a lot of story world building for this um, character Luther and the small town. They are like descendants of the original pilgrims who interacted with the pilgrims who interacted with the Indians for the harvest, and they are steep in rich tradition and family recipes, and so to speak. Luther serves a lot of tea to Nina. Originally, the thought was that it was just to help Nina clear up a nagging cough, but there might have been more to it, because there's like a running joke about how well you sleep after you've drank some of that tea. And yeah, so the story kind of progresses. Luther does get a little aggressive at some points. Um, there was an interesting scene um, where he explains a whole kind of the whole theory of conservation, as far as like you have to kill deer for food, but also it helps sustain the environment, because if the deer become overpopulated, then it ruins the the sustainability, because they eat everything, and then there's more deer than the area can sustain. So there's a lot of theme and a lot of imagery with deers, with the antlers, and it's kind of interesting. At one point, Nina does think that she's seeing like these deer-headed people in the distance, but we really can't be sure, because is it just hallucination type stuff from the tea, the magic tea? I could really go for some of that tea. Um, yeah, so she has to maintain like the house and things. Luther drops on her that a lot of the other residents of the town are going to come for a dinner. They're getting very close to the actual date of the harvest, which is like the little get together that they all have. So this is like a chance for the locals, uh, the neighbors, to come meet Nina. And so we get a very interesting group of people that show up for a dinner party. And they're all very, very, like, I don't want to say racist, but they're kind of like ignorant. Yeah, ignorant would be the right word. And there's a lot of social commentary about the Ukraine Russia situation, which I thought was very interesting, because um, they must have filmed this movie very recently. It did just release in April, so I suppose that they could have filmed this, within this past year, and so they make there's guests that are confused about where Belarus is, so they assume Nina is either in Ukraine, or like they're asking opinion, and it's very, very one-sided, and it's it's awkward. It's very cringe, uncomfortable for Nina, to say the least. So that party just goes without a hitch. I was waiting for like something to go on, and maybe there was other things. But I think it was really to establish that set of characters so that when they do come back for the harvest, we already know their kind of personalities. And then, yeah, they toast to the harvest. So then we get um, some stuff that happens, and I don't want to spoil it, so I apologize for the very sketchy review I'm doing. But then the harvest happens. Um, we have very, very crazy things that go on. Nina does actually end up making it into the basement, and it's very horrific, and things escalate. We find out what Luther's real intent is and what the harvest actually means. And Nina has to, become the kick-ass final girl arc, but she's got her daughter too, and it's an interesting ending. It's very action-packed. This was really more thriller, uh, in my opinion. I guess horror gets slapped on things because of the descriptions and the themes that are going on, but they're really more thriller. I wouldn't say that there was a whole bunch of gore and violence, but there is some, and there's um, slight torture to a degree, and there is some bloodshed. But yeah, if this hits free streaming, I definitely recommend it. If you have $3.99 with the Prime account or Apple TV, it's not a horrible watch. I think it's pretty good. There's some definitely good moments in this, some tense moments. There's even a little dark humor in there. And Luther, played by Chris LaPonta, I thought he was really good, and Nina does a good job too. Like they played off each other very well. And the little girl, who doesn't have a credit actually on IMDb, she was very good too. Actually, I love little kids in horror movies. There were a lot of times there was like a major amount of the end scenes where she's doing this a lot. She is having to cover her eyes, and I thought that was really interesting that they had her even just in the room when some of these scenes were going on. So it's very interesting. So yeah, if you go to check this out, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Keep checking back to the channel for more great stuff.
Right.